Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. We are pleased to welcome you to this new webinar on business recovery and government support. We all have been surprised by the extent of the COVID-19 crisis. Korean authorities and companies in Korea have been quick to adapt to these new circumstances. To prepare with you the next step, the business recovery, we'll have the pleasure to welcome today Mr. David-Pierre JALICON, Chairman of FKCCI and CEO of DPG and Partners Architecture. Dr. Song-Jin Kim, Foreign Investment Ombudsman. Propose you to begin with Mr. JALICON.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear members, dear friends, today's webinar will be dedicated to a subject that concerns all of us, with business recovery, government support, and economic plan in the era of the COVID-19. Despite the fact there has been a business continuity in Korea, which is indeed a big achievement, all our activities here, nevertheless, have been impacted. The Korean government has been very reactive, as always, and came up with various plans following the situation evolution. They are not all easy to understand, especially regarding criteria for being eligible. But I am sure that our today's speaker will help us to have a better understanding about all those governmental measures. Topic will be various, from practical support to the New Deal economic stimulus package from the Korean government, passing through more general appreciation regarding business environment and sentiment in Korea. Korea's image has been boosted as an advanced country thanks to its good crisis management. I guess it represents an historical chance for Korea to become one of the leading countries in the new world, or the world after. But to do so, Korea will have to foster an open and cooperative approach towards the rest of the world and avoid protectionism and discrimination. To discuss about all those subjects, I'm very glad and thankful to have with us today Dr. Song-Jin Kim, Foreign Investment Ombudsman, who is a good and effective friend of this chamber. The Ombudsman is named by the Prime Minister and reports directly to the Blue House. The Ombudsman and his team are here to support all the foreign invested companies whenever they have issues doing business with or in Korea. Dr. Kim did help us in numerous cases involving French companies, and very recently, thanks to his personal involvement, has been able to mitigate with the Korean government regarding the re-entry permission. Cedric, our General Director, will give us more detailed information, but as well some feedback from our members regarding those Korean government support. After all those presentations, I will come back among you to have an open exchange with our speaker. And in this regard, I'm looking forward to your questions through the chat.
Then I will begin with my presentation. Okay, today I would like first to recall that France is a major business partner for Korea because it is the involvement of a French business community in Korea which explains the good dialogue between Korea and French companies. At the FKCCI, we are solicited to express needs and difficulties encountered by French companies in Korea due to the COVID-19 outbreak, but also to take part in the preparation of the Korean New Deal to fully involve foreign invested companies in the post-COVID era. Korean government implemented several business support programs, and we know that even for Korean companies, it can be difficult to access to this information. Some support programs were implemented before the crisis, but are more accessible and reinforced these days for specific sectors or companies. Some support programs were newly designed to face the crisis. Therefore, support programs are now very diversified from different points of view: the sector, the company size, the application period, the operator, which can be at the national level, the local level as Seoul City, or which can be a specialized institution. I will not insist on loan support operated by commercial bank, as Mrs. Choi from Shinhan Bank will give you insight on this matter. To finish, we would like to remind that FKCCI is available for its members, first to provide useful guidance among business support programs, but also in a long-term perspective to convey your needs and difficulties to Korean authorities. Then France is the first European business community in Korea with 4,300 French nationals with a long stay visa in Korea and 210 French nationals with a D8 visa for investors. This means that there are at least 200 French companies established in Korea headed by a French national. And if we had French companies headed by a Korean national or other nationality or a French national with a permanent visa, we reach about 300 French companies which invest in Korea and create jobs. If we take a look at recent trends of French population in Korea, we can see that, of course, short stay visa decreased sharply due to COVID-19, and that long stay visa and French national registered to the immigration continue to slightly increase. This trend confirms the message we are delivering to Korean authorities. French economic presence in Korea will not be jeopardized by the COVID-19 crisis. It's even the opposite. Korea became more attractive and reinforced the confidence of investors thanks to the widely recognized Korean management of the crisis we put forward during our recent webinars and the capacity to maintain the business continuity during the pandemic. During the first quarter of the year, the contraction of the GDP was limited to minus 1.3% versus minus 5.3% in France. The IMF outlook published yesterday forecast an annual growth in 2020 of minus 2.1% and versus minus 4.9% worldwide. Korean economy proved a good capacity of resistance. If the private final consumption expenditures decreased by 6.5% in the first quarter, economic actors continue to invest in Korea as the gross fixed capital formation increased by 0.5%. According to a survey conducted by the Korean Central Bank, the revenue of non-financial companies decreased slightly by 1.9%, but they stay profitable as the operating income margin reached 4.1% for the first quarter of 2020. On the labor market, we know that unemployment rate reached a new high in May at 4.5%, with an increase of 100,000 for the unemployed person. But this increase in May was not due to job losses, as the number of employed persons also increased by 370,000. In fact, employment decreased sharply in March without increasing unemployment, and those people came back in the labor market in May. Also, consumer and economic sentiment indexes show signs of recovery in May as they increased for the first time since the beginning of the year. When we are discussing with Korean authorities about the need of French companies in Korea, we check first the situation of Korean companies. Then I would like to share with you a survey conducted by the Korean Federation of Small and Medium Business. This survey shows that small businesses asked in priority for loan and guarantee to face the COVID-19 outbreak, and consumption support through the extension of the income tax reduction for expenses by credit card and check card. As you may know, this tax reduction was doubled until July 2020. Also, we note that 18% of Korean small businesses benefit from a loan or guarantee. Among those who didn't get any support, 44% was due to a lack of information and 25% was due to the difficulty to apply. Also, 30% of small businesses are considering to change or to close their business. So it recalls us about the importance of organizations such as FKCCI, which is here to support you. Before the crisis, various governmental subsidies were implemented. The objective today is not to describe in details all the subsidy program. I would like just to give you an overview of the employment subsidy scheme in order to share with you which kind of support exists. And of course, if you need further information for your particular situation, please feel free to contact us. Then first, there are incentives for employment maintenance. If you need to impose paid or unpaid leave to your employees for economic reason, you can get a subsidy to cover a part of the leave allowance for your employee. The amount and the condition vary if it is due to the business temporary closing or not, and according to the size of the company. There are also incentives for employment security. If you change a labor contract of a temporary employee, a dispatched employee, or subcontractor employee into a permanent and regular employee contract, you can get 80% of the salary increase until a maximum amount of 600,000 Korean won per month. If you reduce the weekly working hours, it is the same, with a maximum amount of 600,000 Korean won per month. This amount of the incentive for work-life balance vary according to the reduction of hours, but also according to the size of the company. It can partially cover the employee salary, but also indirect labor cost or replacement employee cost. Incentive for compliance with family life can amount until 5.2 million Korean won per year per employee. There are 4 flexible working systems which can open this subsidy. The work at home, the remote working. This means, for example, in an office near the employee home, a flexible starting and ending time, a possibility to allocate differently working hours each day while respecting the working hour average calculating over 1 month. You can receive an incentive for your employee in maternity leave and for the employee who replaces her. There are also incentives for employment creation. If you create jobs by reducing your employee working hours until 1 million per month, and if you resettle your foreign branch in Korea until 7.2 million per year per employee. If you hire young employee, middle-aged employee, I mean over 50 years old, and after we have senior employee for people over 60 years old. As we saw here, there was several incentives existing before the COVID-19, and the situation is now more complicated to understand for companies because these programs were supplemented by additional measures to ease access conditions and increase the amount for some companies and also for a limited period of time. For example, incentives for employment maintenance we saw before were temporarily modified for some sectors as tourism, hotel, automotive, airline, or duty-free, for example. The maximum amount can be up to 90% until September 15th. There are also incentives for professional training until 150% of the standard support amount defined by the Employee Insurance Act. This standard amount is different according to the sector and the type of job. It is usually between 5,000 and 10,000 Korean won per hour per employee. This means that you can get until 100,000 Korean won per hour for a group of 10 employees. Then it might be indirectly interesting for training companies if they include this incentive in their offer. We saw before the incentive for unpaid leave. There is also a specific procedure implemented for 2020, only with a maximum amount less important, but easier to get as the delay to apply is reduced. Of course, the public support is not limited to the employment. There is, for example, a working capital support for major manufacturing suppliers announced during the last ministerial meeting on COVID-19. This support aims to ensure supply chain continuity by supporting key actors in an industry which encounter a problem of working capital due to the COVID-19. The amount per company should be inferior to 100 million won and inferior to 50% of the annual sales. During the same meeting, financial support was announced for auto part suppliers. This support aims to maintain the employment in the automotive sector and to support the innovation. This program is divided into sub-programs, for example, 270 billion won for special guarantees and 30 billion won for future car projects. The other points were border restrictions for business and the promotion of digital solutions in the public sector. As we saw, most of the companies and sectors are covered by the support programs implemented by the national government. But to complete this overview, we should not forget support programs provided by local government. Here there are some examples of temporary programs from Seoul Metropolitan Government. The first one is a support for small businesses. The criteria to be recognized as a small business is different according to the sector of activity, but it is usually less than 10 employees and less than 12 billion Korean won of annual revenue. This support amounts to 30 million Korean won and should be affected to specific expenses. To be eligible, there is a point system based on different criteria as revenue decrease, employment, etc. The second one is for self-employed person. What is important here is that those programs are launched for usually 1 month. Then it is important to check regularly. To finish this overview of existing support, I would like to mention specific organizations who can help a lot. Of course, the Office of the Foreign Investment Ombudsman to resolve the grievances of foreign invested companies operating in Korea. For example, the kind support of Dr. Sung-Jin Kim was very important to solve many issues encountered by French companies. Among public institutions, we can also mention Kotra, Invest Korea, Invest Seoul. Professional organizations are also very important. It is why FKCCI have close partnership with them. In particular, for many issues, French companies and Korean companies have the same interest and the same needs. And to finish, I would like to mention sectorial professional organization and the Small Enterprise and Market Service, which is a private institution trusted by public authorities and which support small businesses in Korea. For example, they provided emergency funds and legal consultation. This overview of support programs shows that they are very diversified and sometimes confusing. At the FKCCI, we work with some of our members to find the adequate solution for them. Then, of course, we continue to support our members on this topic, but we are also looking forward to prepare with Korean authorities the proper business condition for French companies in Korea. Then do not hesitate to contact us. In particular, we are discussing these days about the new regulation on visa for foreigners, the business environment for foreigners in Korea, the negative media campaigns, and the feeling of a preferential treatment for Korean companies as a public support or public contract. We'll come back on these issues with Mr. the Ombudsman at the end of this webinar. Then now I give the floor to
maybe as apparently we had indeed a small technical problem at the beginning. I think not all of you have been able to hear my speech, which is maybe not the most important, but as I was introducing the Ombudsman, Dr. Kim, I would like to represent Dr. Kim to make sure people understand what is his duty in Korea. So I should mention that Dr. Kim, the Foreign Investment Ombudsman, is named by the Prime Minister and report directly to the Blue House. The Ombudsman and his team are here to support all the foreign invested companies whenever they have issue doing business with or in Korea. And I have to say that Dr. Kim has been a very good friend and a very effective friend of this chamber whenever we had an issue. As Cedric did mention, we have unfortunately some case, sometimes involving French company, and the door of the Ombudsman has been always open to myself and those companies. And thanks to his support, we have been able to tackle those issues. Very recently, Dr. Kim has been personally involved to mitigate with the current government regarding the re-entry permission, and I would like to thank him for that as well, because it was a big issue for all of us. So I think now you understand a little bit better what Dr. Kim is doing. The Dr. Kim presentation will have a various topics, from practical support to the New Deal economic stimulus package from the current government, passing through more general appreciation regarding business environment and sentiment in Korea. Indeed, we think that Korea's image has been boosted as an advanced country thanks to its good crisis management. I guess it represents an historical chance for Korea to become one of the leading countries in the new world. But to do so, Korea will have to foster an open and cooperative approach toward the rest of the world and avoid protectionism and discrimination. And I'm sure Dr. Kim will help us by maintaining the good relationship between the foreign invested country and the Korean government and the Korean business environment. So I hope now the mic is okay, Dr. Kim, that you hear me, and we are all here to listen to you. And sorry for this technical issue.
Thank you for your kind introduction and warm appreciation for the work that I have done with regard to the recent re-entry problem to foreign investors. I already would like to thank Mr. Yoon for your well-prepared arrangements and well-prepared presentation just a couple of minutes ago. Distinguished guests, distinguished members of FKCCI, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am Sungjin Kim, the Foreign Investment Ombudsman of Korea. I'm very glad to have today's opportunity to share various policies of the Korean government with the French business community. Today's webinar is to draw your attention to various measures introduced by Korean governments in response to the corona pandemic, and we'd like to share our views on the Korean policies. I'd like to explain in the order of current issues, current status of COVID-19, and second, economic policy measures, third, implications for foreign investors, and lastly, closing and conclusion. Korea witnessed a massive outbreak of the disease due to a certain religious group in a regional city. However, proactive response of the health authorities and voluntary participation of the public flattens the curve of COVID-19 to a manageable level, and the global community has lauded Korea's response as a best practice. But still, there is concern about the possibility of the second wave, as many hotspots, such as a logistics center, multi-level companies are appearing, making the health authorities even more vigilant on the matter. The Korean government has taken preemptive measures to combat COVID-19, and to this end, bold actions were made, such as injecting substantial amount of government's budget. As you may be well aware of, Korea's COVID-19 control strategy is dubbed as 3T method. Test, trace, and treat. First, test. fast and extensive testing through innovation methods like drive-through and walk-through, etc. Second, trace. Epidemiological investigations. The government uses information technologies, for example, mobile applications and EMRs to track down whereabouts of the infected. Third, treat. Effective healthcare system to separate and treat patients. But more than this, we should say the transparent information system based on the fast and accurate IT technology was the #1 factor of the successful containment of the disease. Moreover, the government decided to allocate supplementary budget of 3.67 trillion won to strengthen the disease control capability and support the public welfare and economy. Those countermeasures has been regarded as an exemplary case, and this is more meaningful given that Korea has made the success without any lockdown, travel ban, or border closure. The international community is keen on learning from Korea's experiences, reducing to share our know-how. In this regard, the Korean government is planning to systemize and standardize the K-quarantine based on the three T's that can play a pivotal role in responding to the coronavirus. Secondly, I'd like to explain how the governments implement supporting measures to vulnerable groups and stabilizing public welfare. As you know, the corona pandemic is even deepening the economic polarization. Therefore, the government endeavors in various ways to help the vulnerable class heavily affected by the pandemic. Just a couple of examples. Small businesses support, such as value-added tax reduction and tax cuts for property owners who lowered rental fees for small businesses and low interest loans available for SMEs, and support for childcare related costs and individual consumption tax reduction on car purchase and emergency welfare aid and additional job opening programs, and lowering or delaying the payment of Social Security contribution. To minimize the damages to the real economy, the government stepped forward and rendered financial support to the businesses and provide measures to stabilize the financial market. A couple of examples, as Mr. Yoon explains, the government rendered many kinds of business supports, and I cannot explain in more detail because Mr. Yoon already explained some part of this item. And with regard to financial market stabilization, the governments made bond market stabilization fund and securities market stabilization funds, and introduced a system of primary CBOs and quick bonds takeover program and corporate bond refinancing program. And the financial authorities also gave a lot of effort to stabilize money markets such as commercial paper, short-term corporate bonds, etc. In addition, to support the key industries such as airways and shipping, which were directly hit by COVID-19, the government established key industry stabilization funds. The government also came up with measures to alleviate shock in the labor market, to quickly mitigate difficulties of workers due to unemployed or reduced income. The government provided emergency disaster relief payments to all households. To stabilize the employments, the government implemented many kinds of measures. For example, employment retention, livelihood workers program, job creation, support for the unemployed. I do not go into very detail. And to stimulate domestic demands, the government encouraged the foreign sectors to use the prepayment system or early purchasing system to promote the domestic demand amounts, and to increase and to vitalize the credit card expenditure. The government increased the income tax deduction rate. Next. To stabilize employment and boosting consumption, the government reinforced support measures to promote FDIs. Okay. So far, it was an overview of the economic support of the governments after the outbreak of COVID-19. Now, I would like to turn to the implications for foreign investors arising out of the economic policy measures mentioned above and other major policy areas explaining in more detail. First, the government is doubling its effort to attract high-tech industries into Korea. For this purpose, the government reinforced support measures to promote FDIs of high-tech industries. Around 3,000 high technologies in 33 fields have newly acquired cash grant eligibility. As a result, new industries like autonomous vehicle, smart device, biohealth, etc. are to be eligible for cash incentives. In addition, the limit of cash grant for high-tech industries has been lifted. Second, the government is putting much emphasis to attract R&D center into Korea. To this end, the government will provide even higher income tax incentives to foreign R&D workforce. Cash grant limit for R&D center also has been increased. Next, for the materials and components and equipments industry, because the materials, components, and equipment industry are essential for stable supply chain, therefore the government will do every effort to foster these industries. The government will designate, for example, the government will designate special districts for the material, components, and equipment industries within existing or new industrial zones. In these designated special areas, the government will build more test beds for commercializing and safely assist test analysis of the materials, components, and equipment industries. The government will also make A to G support from technical development to commercializing, strengthen collaboration between buyer and supplier in performance tests of mass production, information sharing, etc., to increase possibility of successful commercialization. Moreover, the government will reduce burdens on disposing industrial residues by establishing more water and chemical waste treatment facilities, etc. These are just some of the examples where the special designated areas will give the materials, components, and equipment businesses operating in those special areas. Now, I'll talk about the reshoring promotion. The corona pandemic revealed the weakness of the global value chains focused on cost optimization. Thus, new concepts like regional value chain or sometimes national value chain are emerging as possible substitutes for global value chain. In other words, securing stable supply chain has become top priority of global companies to retain competitiveness. In line with this, and to create domestic jobs and to revitalize the economy, the government is making all-out effort to support Korean businesses returning to Korea. So far, subsidized incentives were given only to those returning to non-metropolitan area out of Seoul, Gyeonggi, and Incheon. But scope of reshoring incentives will be expanded in order to cover all returning companies, including those returning to the Seoul metropolitan area. Now, I'd like to talk about Korean New Deal. The Korean government is taking this crisis as an opportunity to reshape its economy by preparing a Korean version of the New Deal with the aim of upgrading economic structure and creating new jobs. The plan is composed of 3 projects and 10 tasks, as you can see on the slide. The first is establishing digital infrastructure covering data collection, 5G network upgrading, and AI infrastructure. The next is fostering non-face-to-face industries to lead the post-corona era. And the last is the digitalization of SOCs by introducing smart systems for transportation, etc., to ensure public safety. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 is expected to be the most severe shock on the economy after the Great Depression. Various international organizations, such as OECD, World Bank, IMF, projected the global growth rate would shrink to -5 or -6% this year, while Korea being just at -1 or -2%, which is relatively milder than other countries. Nevertheless, the government came up, okay, this part is explained by Mr. Yun already, so I admit I'll be brief. Next, I'd like to highlight that all government policies apply equally to Korean. All government policies that I explained will be applied equally to Korean and foreign investor companies, because the law clearly states that foreign investor companies are domestic companies. Therefore, I strongly believe there are new opportunities for you, and I would like to ask for your continuous interest and active participation. Here, I'd like to give a couple of tips how foreign investors can access information on policy changes of Korea. The Office of the Foreign Investment Ombudsman offers English translation of key government policies on our website. While we are putting our best effort, it is practically impossible to translate every information from each ministry. I would like to encourage you to pay attention to government measures and keep yourself informed. Accordingly, I would like to share several websites that you'll find quite useful for government policy support and support information. First, for economic policy measures, Ministry of Economy and Finance website, and for financial policy measures, Financial Services Commission website, and for COVID-19 related information and public notice, Ministry of Health and Welfare. For work employment related information, Ministry of Employment and Labor. And for government supports in general, Ministry of the Interior and Safety has the website. And for entry and re-entry permit related information, Ministry of Justice. And for press release in English, Ministry of Culture, Sport, and Tourism. I'd like to say that despite some of the websites are written only in Korean, I'd like to urge you to make an effort to get information through your Korean staff, as it is humanly impossible to have everything translated in English. In conclusion, as I already mentioned, Korea has been highly regarded as a successful country to proactively take actions against COVID-19, and international organizations evaluate that economic shocks in Korea will be much tolerable than other countries. Accordingly, it is expected that the Korean economy will rebound fast as the pandemic goes under control. Mr. Chairman, distinguished participants, I can say that history tells that Korea never wasted a crisis. Even the COVID-19 crisis is becoming an opportunity to demonstrate strong potentials of Korea. I strongly believe that this can be an opportunity for you to leverage the competitive advantage of Korea as an attractive and reliable investment destination. On that note, I would like to recommend you to have continuous interest and plan more investments in Korea. When you are faced with any kind of inconvenience or grievances in doing business here, then please contact me, the Foreign Investment Ombudsman, Korea's unique and most sophisticated system in the world. I assure you that I will be committed to placing myself in your shoes whenever there is any kind of need of help. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim, for this presentation.
We have a few minutes left, so I would like to raise some questions, and especially to Dr. Kim. The first question is related to the Korean New Deal. I think it is related to all the digital industry. I guess it might interest many French companies, as innovation is very part of the new activities in France. And I would like to make sure that those programs will be open to foreign companies, and especially French companies, of course, as probably those programs will be public programs. And we have seen in the past that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to foreign company to participate in public bidding. So I would like to make sure that it seems to be a very nice opportunity that foreign company will be eligible to participate in this probably public program from the Korean government.
Thank you. With regard to the New Deal, the Korean New Deal, what I'd like to say that up until this point of time, the detailed picture has not been determined, is in the process. I suppose by the end of next month, the basic program will be determined. So the detailed program has not been determined. That's the first answer I'd like to mention. And with regard to the second one, whether the foreign companies, especially French companies, can participate in that kind of new Korean deal, Korean New Deal. I can say yes, of course, but basically I'd like to say that we are a member of government procurement agreements in WTO, and according to the agreements, if the government procurement agreement is above certain limit. I do not remember the exact amount right at this moment, but if the total amount of contract is over a certain amount, the government should open the bidding to foreign investors. Yes, so we have to obey. So because we are a member of that agreements, we have to follow that agreements. But if the amount is below that threshold, it's up to the public sector who are making those kind of projects. So legally speaking, basically they can make some kind of, detailed guidelines to foreign investors and domestic investors. So in that case, in some cases, there can be some problems for foreign investors, but most of the time, I think basically the government deal will be open to foreign investors. Okay.
We have a next question from Mr. Vincent Lollet, who is Vice President of FKCCI, but he is as well the Vice President of Accor Group Hotel Operation in Korea. And Mr. Lollet is asking if you have some vision for the recovery of the tourism sector in Korea, which has been indeed very much affected. And if you have information or intel regarding this sector.
I can say that with regard to the tourist sector, which has been severely hit by the COVID-19, many of the tourist companies are in a big trouble, and the government intervenes a kind of scheme that help those workers that has been laid off by the companies, and all tourist companies can benefit those kind of special program by the Ministry of Labor and Employment. In addition to that, I think that to boost the tourist industry itself, basically it requires a lot of time. It depends how the phenomenon of COVID-19 will develop. So basically, even though we have a very minor programs to boost tourist industry, such as the reduction of to give some kind of, financial support to decrease the burden of loan and increase the loan guarantee and something like that. That is not, that could be some, that can work some kind of, impact for tourist industry, but it cannot solve the major problems of tourist industry itself. So to be frank, I can say that we need some more time. So we have a clear limitation that government can support the tourist industry itself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. I know you have to leave now, so I don't want to take too much of your time. And I
have 5 more minutes. I have 5 more minutes.
Okay, so then I have one more question. Actually.
Okay, you or
I collect some questions from our member in advance, and I'm just reflecting them. And plus, I have my own question as well. You have mentioned the cash grant incentive for foreign investor in Korea, but you mentioned that this cash grant is only for high-tech industry, or is it possible to open it to other industry for future FDI?
Basically, the cash grants will be rendered to high-tech and some other areas, not all the industries. Basically, you have the foreign direct investments. We can anticipate some kind of high-tech imports. That's a good point. And the other is that you have the FDI can make a large amount of labor creation, job creation. We can give cash grant, but it's not an open blanket subsidy. So it's a kind of incentive to specific areas. That's it.
Okay. We have as well some issue regarding visa for foreign workers in Korea. So especially from small SMEs who are usually involved in innovative field. So for example, currently there's a limitation in terms of number of foreign workers in a company in Korea. It's limited to 20%. And we have as well so some limitation regarding the visa. For example, if a company is set up by a co-investor, each investor should provide 100 million to receive each of them a D8 visa. I know we have discussed in the past about this issue, and I know there is already an exemption of this quota limitation for company in the field of the digital, and this exemption is valid for only 2 years, which gives time to the company to settle in Korea. But if there's any chance to open to other sector this disposition, this disposal, as we are sure it could benefit to a lot of the next generation of investor who will be maybe entrepreneur, and at the beginning for them it's more convenient to work with people who have same culture, and once the company will be big enough, for sure they will hire Korean people. This is certain. But at the beginning, this quota, this limitation is a little bit a handicap for SMEs or for entrepreneurs. So is there the chance to extend to other sector through discussion and negotiation with you, of course?
David, I do not have, to be frank, I do not have the exact information on this issue. What I have in mind is that you have a foreign investor or a foreign employee who have a special technology, he'll get visa anyway, no problem. What you are mentioning here is that with regard to the amount of investment, there is some kind of, suggested number of visas. That's what I imagine that's what you are talking about. With regard to the number of each amount of FDI, I'd like to check this matter with the Ministry of Justice, but at this moment I do not have any detailed number for that each amount of foreign direct investments. So we'll talk about this matter with you later, if you understand.
Okay. With pleasure. And maybe one last question. It's about as you know, one of the biggest concerns from our company is the system of audit in Korea. And some people think the procedures these days take the form of like a seizure. It's quite strong. Seizure. That is to say, you know, like a seizure search procedure. That to say, procedure. Yeah, the procedure is very, let's say, brutal. Let's say in a certain way. So it gives a sentiment of a little bit of insecurity. And I think this sentiment of insecurity is a big issue these days. I think we have already a sentiment of insecurity coming from the COVID itself. And I think, of course, it's we understood very well that there's a need of investigation at some point. But I think it should be dealt in a more, let's say, gentle way, not to create this sentiment of harassment. So I don't know if it's a question, but this is really something which is really coming to us a lot. And as well, if there could be some communication from the government to avoid a kind of excessive report in the press regarding foreign company who send back dividends. I think as well it creates a sentiment of isolation among the foreign investor because they are sometimes targeting when they are only making fruitful their investment in Korea, and I think that's a good point for Korea. So I hope there could be some communication from the government to reassure the foreign investor that they are welcome in Korea, which I know that's the case, but I think sometimes it's good to remind people that voilà, we are part of the Korean economy, we are part of the family, if I may say.
I understand that what you are mentioning is it's the basic behavior of Korean authorities, such as prosecution office, tax administration, Fair Trade Commission. The attitude is, you are using the term brutal, right? So basically it can be a little bit more general way. It has to be turned in a more gentle way. That's what you're mentioning. Am I right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yes, I think.
And you know, there's cultural difference as well, so that's why probably things are not understood the same way whether you're a foreigner or a Korean.
Mm-hmm. I think that basically it's a very difficult problem, but I think sometimes there is a kind of misconception because of cultural difference, because there's huge difference between Oriental culture and Western culture. So I think that the behavior of Korean people to some foreigners, it looks very rude, and sometimes you can say it brutal, but in their inner mind, they can be very kind. For the Western people, they look very kind, but for their inner mind, it's not sometimes, right? So we can think the opposite way. So it's a very difficult issue. But anyway, I think that the Korea is, I mean, in a globalized world, Korea should be more, in sometimes, more accommodating to the Western culture. So we have to understand the behavior, the feeling, and attitude of Western people. But other than that, this is the maximum that I can say today. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, I understand that. We will keep talking about it. And maybe the last question is, as the Korean, I mean, as I mentioned, Korea did very well in terms of crisis management and appear as a very advanced country and maybe a safe place where to land. And I hope, thanks to that, you will welcome more foreign investor. But one of the concerns is that Korea is an over-regulated country. So maybe at a time, there's a chance, what I call an historical moment for Korea to appear as one of the most open country and safe country to do business, because you have been able to maintain business continuity. Is there the possibility to see deregulation in the past, or to extend the concept of sandbox to other industries than the digital field so far? And I'm sure it will boost Korea economy, and it will boost as well the reputation of Korea as an attractive place to invest, especially considering that probably the regional organization will be reshaped, and we all dream that Seoul will become a regional hub in the future. But I think this deregulation is needed to make sure that Seoul has a chance to become a regional hub, considering what's happened, for example, in Hong Kong or other countries where the COVID is more strong. So is there any chance to see it? It's not easy question, I know.
Do you expect my answer to that? Okay, I think that basically, as I mentioned many times this afternoon, that Korea has surpassed many crises so far, and we learned a lot during the crisis. And so I can clearly say, in the midst of this COVID-19 crisis, we can show our strength and we can show our comparative advantage. And I have a very strong belief that you, foreign investors, can find a good opportunity to trust us again, to invest into Korea again. So that's what I like to mention this afternoon, again and again and again.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. And sorry for the word brutal. It was the first one who came, but it's a little bit excessive. So don't worry. It's not what I meant.
No problem.
You understand me, I'm sure. Okay, thank you for your time, because I think we are much over the 5 minutes you gave us additionally. So I really want to thank you, and I would like to remind our participants that this webinar will be on replay very soon, and I hope to see you soon. And thanks to all of you for your participation. Thank you very much.